Hello, hello. Welcome everybody. Uh, I'm live now on my TikTok live stream. I noticed there were like lots of people who registered to watch the show, and I'm a few minutes late because I had trouble with my USB setup. My webcam all of a sudden was no longer recognized. Uh, I may or may not have guests on the show later as well because there was a young lady who contacted me. She wanted to be on the show to discuss the the scandal in Britain that has arisen. Well, I shouldn't even smile because it's absolutely a horrible case. The grooming gang scandal, not just in Rotherham, but in Rochdale, in Oldham, Oxford, wherever you want. Um, Terrible things have been going on in Britain. So this is my first show for the new year. So happy New Year! That's a bit too late. I will be posting this video also to my YouTube at the Great Johannes. That's my username on YouTube, and on my newsletter at www.jmk.info. Now I'm gonna open up my notes over here because I prepared a whole bunch of things that I wanted to talk about, and then I'll open the floor to some more interactive scheme. Yeah, so we're going to talk about the Muslim grooming gang scandal that's been unfolding. Well, it's been going on for 30 years or more. Some say 60 years, since the 1960s. Girls as young as 11 years old, so we're talking about pedophilia, are being groomed with gifts and attention because they need to feel loved. They come from broken households, or whatever the reason was. They end up in the clutches of predominantly Pakistani Muslim men, who then exploit these girls sexually, prostitute them, rape them, torture them, and in some cases impregnate them and even kill them, even after they had children with these men. In some cases, this is truly shocking. Um, to give you an idea of the scope of the scandal, I'll cite very quickly some statistics over here. There's a guy on Twitter X who composed a bit of a list. So we have Rotherham, that's ground zero, that's the one everybody knows about. And then people may still, even those people who know all about Rotherham, may be surprised to find out it's all towns. It's like almost 50 towns in the north of Great Britain. I'm from the Netherlands, by the way. I am live from the Netherlands, so I'm not in the UK. I'm not a UK citizen. But of course, this topic is so big. Everybody around the world has been talking about it in the past week. I'll get to that in a minute. I see lots of people commenting. I'm going to try to make it interactive, but I'm trying to do several things at once now. So I'll get to the comments as soon as I can. There's also trouble in Rochdale, if I pronounce these names right, you know. Telford. Telford was very shocking. 1 in 8 adult Muslim men in Telford were identified as suspects in the gang raping schemes, and 1 in 11 were arrested in Telford. Telford is like an awful, awful place, judging from these statistics, right? I don't actually live there. I've never been there, so don't judge me for being ignorant. But it happened in Oxford. It happened in Dewsbury, in Batley, in Halifax, in Hulme, in Derby, in Newcastle, Keighley, Huddersfield, Bradford, Bristol, Peterborough, Oldham. So one of the reasons, by the way, why we're talking about this topic of the grooming gangs now, despite 30 years of news suppression by the mainstream media, is that there were court documents from a case, I believe, from Oldham or possibly from Oxford. Uh, this case came before a judge just last year, 2023. Oh, sorry, the year before that, 2023. But the details of the case became known just in the past few weeks, around Christmas, on Twitter X. And that's why it blew up, because we were able to read about the actual details of what had been done to these girls. Girls as young as 12 years old find themselves in extremely pornographic scenes with multiple men at once, so to speak. You can read the details in these court documents. It's way beyond just rape or just grooming or posing as a lover boy to these girls. It's way bigger than that. This is simply uh, organized rape as an act of war. That's how I would describe it. I just don't have the words for it. It happened in Coventry as well, Glasgow, Middlesbrough, Burton on Trent, Hull, Aylesbury, Nottingham, Sheffield, Leicester, Ipswich, Briarfield, Banbury, High Wycombe or Wycombe, Stockport, Ilford, and it just goes on and on. And these are probably not even uh, all of the cases. You know, it's just terribly shocking. So what I want to do for this show is I want to make it not so much about the ethnicity of the people who have done this. By now, it's clear who've done this. And I'm not one of those apologists who wants to detract from that. I want to focus on the sort of ruling class elites who would allow this to happen, who would want to muffle this, basically hide this from view, who would want to suppress any information about it, right? What sort of people would do something like that? What's going on with them? Since I see the politicians, the journalists, the academics, all those who have contributed to hiding this scandal from public scrutiny, uh, the police also, I consider them complicit in some way or form, right? Maybe not legally complicit, but certainly you are complicit in the cover up, right? Isn't that just as bad or even more evil? You basically robbed the British people of their knowledge of this and their national mourning over this. And then something really, really freaky happened. Last night, I've understood, yesterday, Britain's TV channel, Channel 4, presented a documentary about men falsely accused of being in a grooming gang. Right. Now, it normally takes months or even years to produce such a documentary. So the fact that your media had one of these documentaries on hand to air it when the time was right, whenever this, you know, scandal was going to pop up again through the social media, you know, so namely when the truth about Britain's rape genocide was being brought to light again by the social media users, it tells you how premeditated and evil mainstream journalists really are. They had something ready to distract you just in case the topic would become popular again. Yeah. I see a lot of comments coming here. Yeah. So does this happen in Holland too? Sweden and Germany are rife with this problem. Yeah. It does happen in the Netherlands, though. In the 1990s, we began addressing it by describing these men as what we call lover boys. So guys who look good, seemingly successful young men, right? Approaching young girls with gifts and attention and then luring them into the prostitution rings. We do warn girls of this phenomenon. I think we have regular awareness weeks about this, or awareness days about this in the media. So our media at least don't deny the phenomenon, even though our media also hide the ethnicity of the like the predominant ethnicity of the people doing this, right? Um, but at least we talk about it and warn girls of it. So that's, you know. But one thing we never talk about, of course, is the racially motivated. These are racially motivated sexual attacks on girls, largely from white Christian backgrounds, selected for that reason because they are white. They are made targets, right? Um, what I noticed, of course, is that the news cycles nowadays, like mainstream media, when TV and radio were new, the TV programmers, the TV producers, and so on, they controlled the narrative 100%. What they decided to show is what was shown. And now, of course, something organic has happened. News cycles are no longer so programmed, but also organic, because social media sometimes forces mainstream media and politics now to pay attention to topics they would rather have ignored, right? So, like I just told you a few minutes ago, that it was because of Twitter X's information about the Oldham and Oxford court cases about these grooming gangs that all of a sudden this topic became known worldwide, really. It spread like a wildfire across TikTok. I, of course, participated in this. One of my videos saw almost 500,000 views. Lots of people, even actual victims and relatives of victims, contacted me about it to see if I could do something for them. And I told them what I can do is talk more about it. That's why I also programmed in this this live stream event. So may this, on a side note, briefly, may this also be the real motivation behind calls for banning platforms like X and TikTok, precisely because mainstream media have lost control. They no longer control the narratives. They don't choose the topics people want to hear more about anymore. Uh, People organically, through what we choose to pay attention to, what we retweet and like or repost and so on TikTok, we have a real influence now that we never had before. We decide, maybe we're not, I'm not the news, I'm not a replacement for your news anchor, but definitely people like me and my viewers together contribute to putting things on the agenda in a way that was not possible before. So they're losing control over the narrative, and their response apparently is simply deny everything, don't talk about it, and blame it on the far right. This is what Keir Starmer, the premier or prime minister of the UK, actually did. A few days ago, he held a press conference with his white shirt, sleeves rolled up, and making notes and so on. And the guy, Keir Starmer, says, like, people who want to stand up for the girls who were raped, they just want to get on the bandwagon of the far right. He actually said that. Like, dude, what are you talking about? The mythical far right. If there was a far right in the UK, this problem would not have existed, right? You know, that's how I think about it, you know. I would like to also mention a little bit about the details so that we know about what actually happened to these girls, but I have to be pretty vague. Even on TikTok Live, there's a bit of an algorithm here, right? Um, So some girls were brutally tortured. Some girls were attacked by different gangs in a single day within 24 hours. One girl was attacked by 3 different groups in the span of 24 hours, despite in between reporting it to the police. Basically, some of these girls go to the police, and then their assailants, the perpetrators, are tipped off by the police apparently, or someone involved there, right? Girls were threatened with murder, threatened with being doused in liquids and set on fire if they didn't go along with it, or if they dared to go to the police, right? Some girls, a few of them were forced to marry their abusers. And social care workers even attended these weddings rather than attempting to rescue the girls. We're talking about underage girls, 14, 15, 16 years olds, forced to marry in a sort of a tradition, probably not a legal marriage, but you know, the traditional, more like a Sharia court marriage, right? Uh, and girls were forced to carry their abusers' babies. Some had abortions, some didn't. And in one case, I heard there was a woman who said that she gave birth to the child of her rapist. And this guy is now suing for parental rights. He's in prison suing for parental rights, which would force her to take the kid to prison to see his father. Clearly, she does not want that, and she's actually a campaigner now, campaigning against this kind of abuse. I mean, it's just absolutely shocking the way these girls, even as they go older and become women, they are they're repeatedly attacked. They were repeatedly attacked when they were young, and now they are repeatedly attacked by the journalists, by the politicians, by the lawmakers, who seem to just do whatever they can to make life even more miserable. Some of these girls feel like their chances of living a normal life were lost because of the abuse, right? And then they keep getting hit with more trouble and more pain, right? Thanks for sharing the live. I see things going on here, right? Um, so why is that? You know, meanwhile, like hundreds of people per day in the UK are visited by the police. I'm reading my notes here because I prepared the whole system. I can talk well, but I do want to present you my information, right? So, like a newsreader, the news people, they usually have a sheet of paper in front of them with their bullet points, right? I have it in front of me over here. So, meanwhile, hundreds of people in the UK are visited by the police each day for having the wrong opinions about usually racial matters or religious matters, right? But no one seems to be able to draw any conclusions as to why ordinary citizens seem to be coming up with the sort of wrong opinions in the first place. Maybe because these opinions aren't really wrong, you know? Is it because people, ordinary citizens, what we call normies, are starting to recognize patterns? The patterns that government bureaucrats say don't even exist, aren't real. You know, like in Rotherham, I looked up the statistics, and 80% of the perpetrators were of Pakistani Muslim heritage. that's a pattern. You're recognizing something, right? Maybe you should do something about this community then, right? If you know, if basically anybody in such a Pakistani family knew about it, because everybody had a friend or a brother or a cousin who was involved in it, but you didn't go to the police. Okay, that's something we find very difficult to accept in the Western world, right? All right, and is it because perhaps diversity is failing? Because these mass gang rapes, they say someone in the UK Parliament mentioned the number of 250,000 girls attacked in the past 30 years or so. And then the whole your people, your PMs, your MPs, they all started like this. They didn't believe it or didn't want to hear it, or like whatever it was. Um, they stick their ears in their fingers in their ears. Nah, 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 nah. But that's what happened. 250,000 girls. That is the reason why you would want to hide that? Why you want to suppress this information? Because it's evidence of diversity not working, at least not everywhere. Certainly not in these 50 or so towns in northern England where most of this has been going on. Is it because it's evidence of diversity also having a dangerous side? You can't just throw people together expecting them to have a good life and expecting them to sort things out and be fine. No, in some cases, apparently you have warriors like militias, foreign militias, foreign hostiles targeting kids as young as 11 for being white. And of course, that in itself goes against the other narrative of only white people can be racist and white people can't be victims because white people were colonial slavers and imperialists, right? But that is what I call a negative belief in white supremacy, where you say you denounce white supremacy, but at the same time you're saying that, well, white people can't be victims. Really? We can't be victims. We can't be targeted by racists. And it goes against the narrative that all the brown and black newcomers who come to live with us in our countries, they're all fine people. There's never anything wrong with them. They're fantastic. They're great. They bring new kinds of food and music and culture. And we should appreciate this. And the only reason people don't appreciate them is because white people are racist. And it's not possible that some of these people who come to live with us, that they are the racists. They target us for being white, right? It goes against, these are the liberal beliefs that I'm talking here about here. The fact that so many girls have been harmed by mostly non-white males, right, is evidence of diversity going so wrong that you ended up with a rape genocide, basically, right? And then you want to suppress that because it goes against all your beliefs that, well, white people can't be victims, white people are the only ones who can be racist, and other people can't be racist because there's systemic racism that benefits white people always and ever, everywhere, right? It's not right. It's not how it really is. Ordinary people can see that, hey, wait a minute, the only real institutionalized racism that we've ever experienced here is the anti-white one, right? So is it because perhaps ordinary white people are becoming racist because diversity in their neighborhood, in their locality, is a complete utter failure, right? It leads to hostility and aggression, lack of safety. And then you're not allowed to talk about it because the police will knock on your door and arrest you because you said naughty words. You said illegal, you uttered illegal allegations, right? At this point, you can probably be reading the newspapers and get arrested for that too, right? Hold on just a minute. Okay. So we've opened the door to mass immigration, right? To some degree, some percentage of these newcomers are foreign hostiles who hate us. And if you would just accept that and deal with it, it would be easier to solve the problem than if you would completely deny it and then blame the people complaining about it and call them racist, right? So how are people least equipped to deal with with the hostile segment of the demographic, lower class, working class white people? How are they supposed to make diversity a success if they're the ones systematically robbed, raped, stabbed, and murdered in their neighborhoods, right? And then blamed for it as though you just provoked the violence or something, or it was just your fault, or you wanted it, or because you're white, or in one case, a judge, a British judge, faced one of these Asian quote unquote rapists. And because he had attacked another Asian girl in this case, uh, he was given uh, a, a greater sentence. He was sentenced to more months and days in prison because the victim was non white, suggesting that by the logic of this judge, the judge actually said that non white girls suffer more, suggesting that white girls suffer less. Do you get it? Do you see what's going on here? The judges, British judges, at least one of them said this, that suggested that white girls suffer less and therefore you can rape a white girl and get away with it more easily. How is that not institutionalized racism? Isn't that even the first evidence of real institutionalized racism, right? You know, we're told to be quiet about these kinds of things, okay? But I can't do that because clearly the system of diversity, multiculturalism that was promised us to be glorious and fantastic has a dark side, has a violent side, has a criminal side. And you cannot ignore and deny that. You have to talk about it and face it. Yeah? So our ruling classes seem to be stupidly out of touch with the social reality of multiculturalism here. We have politicians and journalists and academics who don't live in these neighborhoods. They don't live in working class neighborhoods. They live maybe in nicer neighborhoods in London or wherever they're really hailing from. They're not personally confronted by these problems, and so it's very easy to simply ignore and deny it and say, well, this is all made up. This is a right-wing conspiracy theory. These are all just people trying to get on the right-wing bandwagon or something. You know, the bandwagon of the far right, not even ordinary right. So I consider this a form of class hatred. The educated class in Britain, educated white people mostly, they seem to realize perhaps that they are most responsible, their class, the educated class, the aristocracy, the nobility, the royalty, they are most responsible for colonialism and slavery in the past. Their class is. But it doesn't look good on them to carry that blame, so they deflect it and they pass the blame on to the working classes, thinking, well, who cares, right? As though the people who are least involved, the working classes who are least involved in imperialism and colonialism, are somehow now the ones most to blame for it. And if today diversity is a failure, it must also be their fault and not the newcomers' fault, right? So it's clear to me that our political leaders are stuck in a program, in a routine. Like they're unable to think for themselves. They take too much for granted. They are so ideologically driven that they are able to deny reality right in front of them. Most of these people, these politicians, like I think there was a woman, Jess Owens, who denied Oldham its inquiry into the truth about these grooming gangs. She admitted she had never even spoken to any of the victims. Right? So without even looking, they're convinced that it's all just white bigotry. It's all just white hatred for others, xenophobia. That must be it, right? So, but I think that this educated class knows better. They know that diversity. They think or they believe that diversity would be a huge success if it weren't for the innately racist white working class, right? So they think that the white working classes are the problem, and they direct all their attention or their hatred, their attacks, basically toward those people who have probably are not so responsible for these things. You didn't cause this nightmare, right? So they proceed to allow the eradication of a working class, a lower class, through some genocidal rape program, by and large because they don't even believe that it's real. That may be the truth, that your educated classes probably don't believe these things were true. And that is why I just told you at the start of this live stream, when we have this information arising on social media, when it comes out, right? When people start talking about it around the world on TikTok and Twitter and so on, this forces the politicians to have another look, right? But they don't want to. They don't want to do that, so they basically just try to make it seem like it's all made up by racists or something, right? So perhaps In my view, if you allow these attacks to continue, attacks on this white working class, then the middle class is next, right? Maybe then they'll see, right? I really want to hammer this point across. Like, our ruling classes are utterly ignorant, but purposely so. They can't bring themselves to drop their fictional ideology, right, and look at the world through their own eyes. Partly out of fear, they are afraid of the reality. They're afraid of their own underclass, right? Because they're fully aware of the crimes the elites have committed against their own, right? They don't want to be confronted with any backlash. You have to be living in quite a bubble. If you're someone like Keir Starmer, the prime minister, you must have lived a very, very sheltered life where everything you were told to believe about ordinary people is simply false. It's all based on doctrine and ideology and never on just going out into the field and talking to ordinary people. I don't think they ever do that. You know? But I also want to stress or highlight something that what is actually the reason that so many girls ended up in the hands of these gangs? uh, Unhappy homes, probably. So there's another problem. There's two problems. There's the rape gangs who are wrong, right, for doing so. But then there's the other problem of girls seeking them out, partially seeking them out because they're so dissatisfied, so unhappy. They come from broken homes. Maybe the lower class homes, maybe it's a symptom of an overall economic decline of your society. And people in the working class are just struggling, meaning the white working classes are struggling to have a life and it's not going well for them. And as a symptom of that, the young girls seek a way out of this, looking for wealth and gifts and attention, and find it with the wrong men. Perhaps this is another dimension of what's really going on here, right? Right. So, and although a ton of details about all these cases had long been known for decades and years, they had never been fully acknowledged by the public media. And even now, the media don't want to really discuss it. You have like alternative media like GB News or so, they do talk about it. But the BBC will tell you that you're just a racist for even wanting to discuss it, for even wanting that inquiry, right? So, uh, how strange is it that perhaps this liberal educated class truly believes that only white people can be racist? What a strange, it's a form of class myopia, right? Class myopia, like you only want to look at what's right in front of you and ignore what's out there. So do these ruling class people really not grasp the nature of our reality? Did they really believe the meme white people bad? You know? Is that what they call? Is that why they call everybody racist? If you pointed out that sometimes, in some cases, non-whites aren't exactly the victims, and media constantly portray them as victims anyway, like despite mountains of evidence pointing to the contrary. Like, when are we waking up to this fact that multiculturalism can't be all good? There has to be a dark side and a violent side to it. And if this is not addressed, it will fester and get worse. You have to uh, put an end to it by calling an end to it, right? I did I see Labour UK voted in the last few minutes? No, I didn't see it. No. What happened? Here. Uh, it won't let you post research about this. Okay, let me see. It may be that the TikTok algorithm here on the live stream it's censoring some stuff, so I don't really know. So why did we stop caring about our own people? You know, to me, this is the greatest deficit in this whole story is that our upper classes hate their own kind. They're throwing us under the bus, right? They're sacrificing us for diversity, right? And they're all deflecting their own blame for colonialism and imperialism onto the lower classes who had nothing to do with it, right? So, and I do know there was Tommy Robinson, of course, who always spoke about this anyway. I looked it up. What exactly was the reason why they jailed him? Is because he kept repeating what they now call unallowed or illegal allegations, prohibited allegations. He wasn't allowed to say certain things, not because they were false, but because the judge had decided he was no longer allowed to say them. So that's really weird. That is 1984, George Orwell. That's the truth is a lie. All right, you can get to jail for saying things that are true, but because a judge said they were prohibited allegations, you're not allowed to repeat them, and if you do, you go to jail. That is insane. That's just absurd. That is not how rule of law works. So when the Prime Minister Keir Starmer, he did this in that press conference, he said like, we care to uphold the rule of law. No, you don't. You're totally abusing the justice system to have this information suppressed when you should be using it to go after the perpetrators, right? Maybe all of us in the Western world have trouble understanding this, right? That yes, we can be victims of foreign hostiles. Yes, foreigners can be racist toward us too. Uh, and no, foreign aggression isn't always caused by the far right provoking them, right? We have to accept that the people who come to live with us are like other people. They're just people. White people in this respect we're really equal in this respect, meaning we're not different. It's not that white people are the only ones who are racist and nobody else would do that. They say that, right? Like white people invented the construct of race or something, and therefore it's all made up. Well, if it's made up, then how come you keep calling us racist? So I do know that if the situation had been the other way around, if far right skinheads or something had been raping just a handful of Muslim girls for the fact that they were Muslim, for being Muslim, every city in Britain would have been on fire and would still be burning today, right? But it's the other way around. It's now predominantly Muslim predators targeting Christian white girls, and all of a sudden we just ignore it as much as we can because maybe we're afraid our cities will, right? Our cities will burn up if we start talking about it more. And so we have a real big problem on our hands that needs to be diffused, whether you like it or not, right? It's perhaps this Western attitude of turning the other cheek, right? Of taking the abuse as though, oh, we're better than this. We're above this situation. But no, we're not. We're actually getting harmed and hurt in absolutely savage, brutal ways. You know, we need to deprogram ourselves, our collective Western psyche, not just Britain, but all of this, Europe, USA, Canada, Australia. The Western psyche needs to be deprogrammed from these weird, senseless beliefs that we can't be racist and all institutional racism is anti non-whites. This isn't true. I don't know why did we even begin to believe in such beliefs in the first place, So we can be victims too, right? And it's doesn't that make us human? Isn't that the cure to beliefs in white supremacy? If you acknowledge that we can be victims too, we're people too, So it's one thing to peddle this kind of liberal propaganda, but to actually believe it, that's a whole nother matter, right? That's just strange. Like we've raised our young as sheep to be gullible, right? And we've thrown them to the wolves. That's what Rotherham and so on keep showing us over and over and over again. All right, these were kind of the points I wanted to make. Maybe I'll just interact with the audience, or I don't know if there was somebody who wanted to get live with me or so. Let's see how this goes. All right. Oh, I'm using a dual layout, and I can't do it there. Oh, wait. This is going to be a bit annoying. I think I may need, if I wanted to get people online on my show, I will have to log out for a minute and then because I have the dual. All right. Here's a problem. I'm using a dual layout, and it doesn't allow me to do certain things. Or here we go. Friends. All right, I see my friends aren't online, so I can't really do a co-host or something. Or otherwise, I would have to make it a bit more interactive. All right, but that's okay. Right. So you're scared of your daughters, right? Yeah, you want to leave the UK, but where to? Where would you leave to? The big deal here is that this is happening in Sweden, it's happening in France, in Germany, in the Netherlands to some extent, right? We all feel like maybe we're all thinking of running off, right? Like we wish we could escape diversity in some way, right? Right. People frown upon the victim mentality, but historically, it usually was the fuel for taking it back. Right. Right. Uh, so does the Dutch government not censor you like the UK? Yeah. In the Netherlands, we do also censor the ethnicity of people, of criminals, and so on. But what happens is we do talk about the crime, right? And I feel that in the UK, you even ignore that. You ignore these grooming gang scandals for such a long time, simply completely suppressing it, even lying about it, and then that's really extreme. We have nowhere to go. Exactly, like the country the immigrants come from wouldn't have us, right? But we wouldn't want to go there either, I suppose. Yeah, yeah. I don't know about Trump's plans for Greenland and Canada. Sounds a bit far fetched to me. Uh, yeah. Yeah, that's the problem. Like, where do we go? Poland, maybe. Yeah, I heard somebody from the UK told me they wanted to move to Poland. Yeah, because of the speech climate is just so much better there. You can just she had a very popular TikTok account. She was also a bit of a right wing person, and she was so afraid of the of going to jail for even reposting anything on TikTok that she closed down her account, deleted all her videos, and left. Yeah, so that shows you that people really are afraid of the legal system in the UK. That you can go you can go to jail for years if you've uh, made someone feel bad or so, right? That's just so extreme. All right, if we can't get him out, we'll have to run further north. Yeah, run to the hills, run to the forests and the hills. Yeah. All right, I think you missed it, but Labor voted against an inquiry to grooming gang. Oh, they just voted against it. Oh, great. Wow. Well, glad I did the live stream. At least you got this because I'll post my live stream to my YouTube channel as well at the Great Johannes, and also to my newsletter at www.jmk.info. So you can find me there. Uh, I'm also on Twitter X as at JohannesMKX. What's the bigger picture, do you think, Johannes? I think this is by design that the political class they are so deeply invested in this uh, fairy tale of diversity and mixing races and so on that they forcefully tried to mix the white working class women with foreigners to produce babies, basically, so that you would create a mixed race population or an increasingly mixed race population. I suppose that is the grander plan, although I can't prove it, but I do know that these liberal people in power positions they entertain such fantasies. They like the idea of this. They don't. They wouldn't say that we shouldn't do that or that. And I feel that they are capable of it. They're capable of allowing mass rape on such an industrial scale, uh, to the point of causing genocide. Yeah, I'm perfectly. I definitely believe that that is a possibility. Yeah. Right, Peter Sweden. Oh yeah, that guy. Yeah, no, he was also targeted by the police. Really. Uh, yeah, it's absolutely dangerous. Hold on. So I'm reading through your comments. There's just so many of them. Uh, I've been seeing so much blasting through it. So can we mass migrate to South Korea? I think South Korea is pretty much overpopulated anyway. Though you could try if you enjoy working 120 hours a week. Uh, have you heard of the disappearance of Charlene Downs? I've heard several cases. I don't know if this was the one, but there was a case where one girl got pregnant, gave birth, and then later she was burnt alive by this gang. And in one case, the perpetrator's disgust of chopping up one of the girls and mixing her in with the kebab meat to sell it to customers. Although I believe they didn't actually do that, but they did kill the girl. So it's just shocking. Yeah. Oh, hold on. Right. So you're playing the victim card. Yeah. Well, we are human beings, and we have the right to be. Can't afford to eat in the UK. It's tax, tax, tax. Yes. I don't know. I think should Europeans move to Australia, or maybe the other way around? At what point would you say we need more men and women returning to Europe from the colonies, from the former colonies, from Australia and from Canada and the USA, come back to Europe so we can make a stand here? Uh, is there really? Well, there is strength in unity, but is there also strength in division? If we're so divided across the planet, maybe what needs to happen, if Europe wants to survive, if our people want to survive as who we are, then perhaps we need to reconvene in Europe, bring our people back, allow people from South Africa, white people or something, if they want to come back, let them come back. Uh, we should, of course, prevent new immigration troubles. So people should be trained there for a year or two to teach them the language, right? They need to pass like a language exam because language is such a big barrier to entry in anywhere, any market, right? You have to speak the language. Um, if they're not, you know, I would definitely do that, like a sort of right of return. If you're like fifth generation Swede living in Canada, should you be allowed to come back? I think at some point, wouldn't we rather have our own kind of people back, people who are still familiar with the culture, and in some cases may speak the language still? Shouldn't they be allowed to come back so that we can strengthen ourselves here and start working on an entirely new kind of Europe? Not so much a Europe based on economic power or even military power, but a Europe based on what I would call or describe as authentic power. Europeans who dare to live authentically as who they once were. Maybe it's in some way I'm a traditionalist. That doesn't mean I want to pause time and force people to live in one era. I would like traditionalism to be that skill to deal with any trouble. What I'm trying to say is I would embrace a bit simpler life if we had less money, but we had more confidence and we had more love for ourselves and we invested more in our children and we cultivated more skills and competencies and we would teach ourselves to be brave again, not shy away from foreign hostiles, that we would deal with this grooming gang simply overnight by sending in the military and just arresting everyone involved, right? And not be so apprehensive about this, or even to start calling people names like you must be far right or a racist for even caring about your own people. That needs to go. All of that needs to go. And I would call this liberal worldview needs to be dismantled, deconstructed in a way, and replaced with something where we allow ourselves to be strong again. It doesn't make us evil, but where we allow ourselves to explore our shadow. If you're into psychology, there's a whole angle that says everybody has a shadow, a dark side. And by tapping into this dark side, you become a more complete person. And that's what I wish for all Europeans, that we stop being so one-sidedly good and happy, like Keir Starmer, always thinking that everything bad is far right, but maybe accepting that maybe we were colonials in the past and imperialists in the past. All that really means is we possess a certain strength, a certain potential that we shouldn't be afraid of. And we should allow ourselves to harness these strengths to secure a future for ourselves the way we want to have it, right? Yeah, the courage was destroyed from within. Absolutely. That's it. That's it, right? They funded immigration to Europe via NGOs. Yeah, they did. Yeah. In the USA, the borders are wide open, right? So, right. You have like 1 million migrants a year coming in, and that's ludicrous. Like, there aren't jobs for these people. What are you going to do with them? It's almost as if the southern states of the USA are turning into Mexico, right? Or you're going to be, yeah, minorities. But why would you want this? Too much of our world revolves around money. Decisions are made because they make money. But sometimes I would argue um, things aren't worth the money you could make with it. Right? Sometimes it's better to incur a cost to preserve something. Right? Maybe that's why most billionaires are left leaning. Right? They don't like the sort of conservatism that conserves values and culture and tradition. They don't like it because that's costly. Right? They could make more money doing away with the culture, right, or even the language in some cases, right. All right. So yeah, I know California used to be part of Mexico. Yeah, things the borders have changed. I'm very aware of this. But then, the question is not that we should keep feeling guilty over past events. We should face the future with a certain confidence where we are not afraid of making mistakes anymore. Where we just stand up for ourselves and then clearly communicate what we want to the world, and then we just work with people. All right, there will be conflict, but we will face them. That's my point. Right? Is Elon a bad actor? Yeah, I wonder if he, on the one hand, he discusses a lot of good things, and on the other hand, he's more like, yeah, he wants to flood the USA with the H-1B visas from India and so on. It's like, dude, it feels like that felt like a betrayal when he said he wanted to have millions of Indians coming to the USA. I assume he wants to do the same with Germany and the UK as well. Isn't that why he supports Reform UK and he supports the AFD, the Alternative for Germany? Uh, isn't it because he wants that mass migration coming into our countries? Like, haven't we had enough mass migration? Yeah, we've had enough mass migration. Why can't we decide what our countries are supposed to look like or what we want them to look like? How come we have no say in the future of our own countries? All because we're supposed to feel guilty for the past, and we should allow everyone to blame us for everything. This is weird. Something really dystopian happened last week. There was a man on Dutch television claiming that we are extremely racist people, but then at the same time there was this research by the United Nations that said that the Netherlands was like the third least racist country in the world. They have like a top 10. The UK is also very high up this list of least racist countries in the world. We are not the racists at all. Even the USA is high up on that list. You're uh, truly racist countries, they genocide each other you know, as what happened in Rotherham, perhaps, with the rape squads. Yeah, Arizona has had enough. Yeah. Tell us more about the white Dutch atrocities in Africa and Southeast Asia. I don't know anything about it. This is the point. Like, we don't have to feel guilty about these things anymore. Whatever our history is, whatever the Afrikaner did, whatever the British did to the Afrikaner, and whatever the Hutus did to the Zulus, whatever, and the Tutsis. Let's talk about the Hutus and the Tutsis. I don't have to bring these things up anymore. People are allowed to live without, this primordial sin of the past or something. Right? We got to be able to uh, have more self determination. I think that's very important. Yeah. Yeah, you're called racist if you dare to speak out. Yeah, it's horrible. Yeah. You're the most tolerant country. Yeah, that's why you're letting everyone in. Yeah. If the countries of the West were racist, we would have closed borders and we would be actively sending everyone back. We're not doing that, right? Right. What do you think about the Russia-Ukraine war? It's a dead end. It's only going to get worse if we keep fighting it. And that doesn't mean I think Russia should take territory away from Ukraine. I think Europe should try avoiding getting involved in it. So we should defend the Polish borders clearly because Poland is next and Sweden is maybe next. But of course, we should defend aggressively our outer borders, but we should not perhaps get dragged down in this conflict that does not serve our interests. All right. Right. Oligarchism is the bad version of capitalism. Yeah. I kind of agree with that. Yeah. All right. All right, like I said, I'm going to round it off a bit here. I will do another live stream next week, same time. And you will find this episode on my YouTube channel, as I said, I mentioned before, at the Great Johannes, and on my newsletter, jmk.info. I'll post it over there, and then you can review and rewatch it. Right? Is Andrew Tate running for prime minister? Then you should just arrest him. Be done with this kind of nonsense. All right, have a good time.